Hi, I hope you guys are keeping well. So today we are going to do an unusual chapter about a musician. So let's turn to page number 114, and the name of the topic is a resolute composer. Resolute means someone who's determined to do things against all difficulties or all odds. Someone who has made up his or her mind to achieve something under any circumstances. So a composer is a musician who who is someone is a person who makes music or who writes songs or who creates music. So there's a small activity before we start the chapter. It says there's play one round of a game of miming some songs. Let your partner guess. Let's say, for example, you can do it at home with your family members. You can stand in one place, and then you can let the other person guess the song that he or she is singing or thinking about. So you have to with no clue, or you can just blindfold yourself. That means cover your eyes, and then you go from one place to another in your house. So how what was your experience? Was it difficult or easy? And is it as easy to understand things, without someone trying to tell you which song he or she is about to sing or talking about? Or is it as easy to walk with open eyes than to walk with eyes with blindfolded eyes where you cannot see things? So basically this activity is an introduction about what are we going to discuss today. And this story is about one of the greatest musical composers in the field of who contributed in the field of Western classical music, and his name will come to know. So, can you imagine a musician being deprived of his sense of hearing? It's almost like saying that, how do I put it? That, that someone who has created something so extraordinary is not able to hear it, listen to it. So, this gentleman called Ludwig van Beethoven was a great German composer and pianist. He was not only a music composer, but he could play the piano very beautifully and viola or violin also. And he gradually became deaf. With the constantly, as with the passage of time, he lost the ability to hear things, and he became completely deaf. Critics and listeners of all ages and times regard Beethoven as the supreme exponent and the most defining figure in the history of Western classical music. Critic is someone who is an expert in a particular field, and then he's a position to judge and give comments about someone else who's also contributed in the same field as his. So basically, for example, you have different forms of critics. Let's say, for example, if I'm an expert in movies, I become a music critic. I become a movie critic. If I'm an expert in cooking, so I become a food critic. If I'm an expert in politics, I become a political analyst or a critic. If so, henceforth, something that you are an expert and you have complete knowledge about that particular field, then you are in a position to comment about someone in the same field. People hire you, people pay you for that job. And most of the critics are not oral. Sometimes you have to write your critical views in written form also, so in black and white or written form. So that's how critics are. It's almost like, say, for example, if you're watching a music show or a dance show, on the television, you see a set of people sitting, and then someone is dancing. So, and then at the end of the dance or the performance, then this person says that today your dance was not up to the level, or you have to add few more moves, or your dance was exceptional. So these are the comments, and these comments can be given only because this particular person is an expert in dancing. So you will not see, a singer trying to judge a cookery show, you know. Um, so it's not like that, So people in the same field can only do that. So when experts in music, they used to listen to his music, and listeners of all ages and times regard Beethoven as a supreme exponent. He was one of the finest and musicians, extremely skilled, and the most defining figure in the history of Western classical music. When people are talking about Western classical music, Beethoven's name cannot go unnoticed. He has a very big contribution in the field of Western classical music, and he's still remembered till date for his contribution. And for a major, significant part of his life, he could not hear any music. He was deaf for almost 30 years, of his music career, which was one of the most disheartening things for a professional, for a musician, for a composer. But that did not stop him to produce one of the finest pieces of music ever. And Born in Bonn is a small place in Germany. In Germany in 1770, Beethoven was 25 when he was struck by a strange disease. Beethoven was born in 1770 and he passed away in 1827. And when he was 25 years old, he gradually realized that he has some issue or problem with his ears. And as human beings, I think, God has given us two beautiful eyes to look whatever He created and things that we wish to see. And we in the same form, we have sensory organs, that God has gifted us, like a nose to smell things, and ears to listen to things that we want to hear, sometimes things that we don't want to hear also. And and these all complement to our entire physical features, where and it enhances our personality, or rather character, to identify and appreciate things that we have in nature or amongst us. So it is quite unusual, not unusual, but it's very unnatural, very very difficult to accept the harsh reality where you do not have any one of the physical features, um, present in yourself as a human being. Now, so these are the things that we are talking about. That despite of the fact that he was one of the greatest composers, he spent most of his musical career as a deaf man. The infirmity, the incurable disease captured him slowly but steadily. It was a very slow process, but he did not become deaf in one day. But yes, with the passage of time, slowly he started losing his hearing skill. For 2 years, he avoided all social gatherings because it was impossible for him to communicate with people. He just could not talk with people because he could not listen back to whatever they were saying, and he stopped talking, and he just stopped going out or meeting people. Nor could he allow them to know that he was unable to hear what they said. This was one of the most difficult times in Beethoven's life, when he just was not ready to digest the fact and accept that he's become deaf, and he did not want to disclose this physical ailment to his friends or other people also. Most painful was to accept the fact that this was an incurable disease that would get progressively worse with the passage of time. One of the most disheartening things as a musician was that uh, Cure is, when there's a solution or a treatment for a disease. Incurable means when you know that there is no remedy for your problem, for your physical disease or problem. So, and he knew that with the passage of time, slowly, he's going to lose his hearing power. The thought that he would soon be unable to hear his own or anyone else's music devastated him. And because he was a professional musician, a composer, and he loved music, the idea that there will be a time when he just could not appreciate or listen to his music or someone else's music left a very, very negative impact on him. He traumatized me, something that leaves a very, 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 very dark mark in your life, and he just was not able to accept it. So, to come to terms with this shock, he went on a retreat to a village outside Vienna called Heiligenstadt. So, you must have heard your family or elders at home saying that they want a break. Break means when you just want to get out of your regular routine, something that you've been doing every single day. And because he was so tired of his physical problem, and he just could not, he was dealing with a lot of pain, he wanted to go, he just wanted to be left alone, he wanted to live alone for some time. So he went to a village outside Vienna. When he started his music career in Germany, he gradually did move to Vienna. Vienna is the capital of Austria, and wrote a heartbreaking letter about his deafness. And that was the time when, for the first time, he wrote, accepted, and he started writing about his physical problem. And he wrote it in black and white, in written form. In this document means when you have a proof of an incident in a written form, he expressed his utter despair caused by his deafness. This was a time when he accepted that he is dealing with a lot of problem, a lot of issues because of his because he has lost his hearing power. He wrote, "I would have ended my life." That means he must have done something really drastic. He must have tried to finish his life. It was only my art that held me back, and the only driving thing that made that forced me to move on, despite of my physical problem, despite of the fact that I was becoming deaf, was the love for music. And he loved music like any professional who loves his job, and that was the only thing that kept him alive. This was his he confessed to it, he accepted that. And it seemed to me impossible to leave the world until I had brought forth all that I felt was within me, and so I endured this wretched existence. And he's accepting that, that it seemed to me impossible to, he said that I just could not leave this world until I was able to be in a position where I could express whatever I felt like. He's going through a lot of trauma, a lot of pain, emotional pain, because he has left one of his. He was not left, but I should say he was bereft. He lost one of his sensory organs. He lost the capability to hear things, and for him this pain was enough to bring out whatever out of him, out within, he to express things that he was feeling. And that was the only thing, the driving force, that, and so I endured. He worked. If you look back there, you have the meanings also on page number 116. Endured means he was able to bear that pain, that trouble, emotional pain about, and this wretched slow existence. He's referring to his life as a life which has no meaning, meaningless existence. And he said that that was the only thing that made me move on in this. Although my life was meaningless because I had become, I was a handicap. But then, because I wanted to take out whatever I felt, I wanted to express it in the form of music, and that is why I was still alive. For the rest of his life, till he was alive, he tried his best to search for a cure for his ailment. He tried every treatment, in the hope that his deafness could be cured, for his treatment, for his physical problem, for his disease, but found none. There was no solution, no diagnosis, not diagnosis, but no treatment for his problem. There were no doctors who specialized in deafness during that time, during this time. So the exact cause of his deafness was never known. The doctors could not basically identify the problem why he has lost his hearing skill, the his hearing power, and that is why there was no solution. When communication became very difficult, when he could not talk, and you could not reverse back, and he could not understand what the other person was saying, he used conversation books. He started writing his conversations, writing his whatever he felt in writing in books, where his friends wrote what they wanted to ask him, and his friends also started asking Beethoven in the same way by writing. The answers to these questions, however, have not been found. There is no written record about how he replied. Maybe, probably, he must have used some sign language, or we don't know. There is no record, but there was no answers. Some people believe that his deafness caused him to turn inwards to draw inspiration from his own inner resources, and actually contributed to the originality of his compositions. There are many people who take life in different ways. Your perspective, your attitude towards life is different. Some people will get affected very negatively, with a jolt, with a problem, with a physical disease, and some people will take that problem as a stepping stone, and take that as a strength to move on, to more, to do more, and excel, along with that problem. So Beethoven was someone who accepted his deafness, and then he moved on to produce one of the finest music compositions in the world of Western classical music. So this is he's trying to say that some people believe that his deafness caused him to move inwards. He became more uh, he started evaluating himself. He became, and he started to accept himself, more as a deaf man, to draw inspiration, and he was inspired. Inspiration means when you look upon someone and some personality, and you want that person's qualities in yourself, whether dead or alive. um so he was inspired by his own sickness, by his own deafness. He was not inspired by someone else, but he took that physical disease as an inspiration to move on, as a lesson to move on from his own inner resources, his inner resource, his inner belief, and actually contributed to the originality of his compositions. Composition means when he was composing, when he was making these musical notes, that was the originality. It was not that he was inspired by someone, these were original, with all that pain that he was, going through, with all that trouble that he was going through. He produced one of the most beautiful compositions. Beethoven went for long walks carrying sketchbooks, which became the repository of his musical ideas. He would go for these long walks where he would gain ideas, and he would take a sketchbook. Sketchbook is almost like a book which has blank pages where you can sketch, you can make paintings, or anything, in writing. And the sketchbooks would be where he would store basically his musical ideas. He would get inspired by something, and then he would store it and write it in that sketchbook. These sketchbooks reveal how Beethoven garnered all his strength, and the sketchbooks that we have in record tell that how he started collecting all the ideas and courage to overcome his special needs, where he used to get inspired to overcome his deafness, his inability to hear things, his inability to listen to music, something that he loved. He painstakingly, he took a lot of pain, a lot of extra effort, compared to a normal musician who could hear things, perfected his melodies, and he was in a constant struggle to improve his tunes, harmonies, and instrumental compositions. Beethoven was an expert in composing orchestra, not orchestra, but symphonies. Symphonies, when you have so many musicians who are playing together with different musical instruments, and they are playing together. He was an expert to do that in producing such kind of music. And instrumental compositions, where you have a lot of musical instruments used, by putting down on paper something that he could only hear in his head and his heart. And whatever he produced was something he knew what he was producing, because he was not born deaf. So just listening, remembering that, and trying to compose it, trying to put it down in pen and paper, and trying to improve it constantly so that he can produce one of the finest forms of music, was something exceptional, something that a normal person like you and I would not be in a position to do. So this is what I'm trying to say. I'll just stop here, and then we'll continue. We'll conclude the chapter tomorrow and discuss the question answers. I'll see you guys.